الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذي أذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذي أذهب الله عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to our Quran session. So we're continuing our journey into Surah Fatiha and we left off at Allah's name Ar Rahim, and I did receive some emails and I haven't gotten back to them. I apologize for that. So we were talking about understanding the value of intuition last week, and we were talking about understanding how the female divine energy represents this inner intuition, which is not structured with a lot of logic. It's not too, robotic in its logical understanding, but it's something that feels right in the gut. And we have been made to believe that this kind of way of understanding life is so goofy and it's unreliable. But to the contrary, it is the intuition that is the higher intelligence. And I was just reading a quote by Elon Musk yesterday. He said there's a big difference between the education we receive in schools and then intelligence. So if you look at the way the world works, we'll see, well, go to college, get a job, secure your future, and do that kind of life. But giants like Steve Jobs or, Mark Zuckerberg and all these people didn't go to college, right? They were dropouts, and they've changed the um, they've changed the perception of a college dropout for us because of the way they did their life. They followed their intuition, they followed their gut, and they definitely followed their heart, right? That's what we would say, that they followed their heart, and they went for a choice in their life which was highly risky, but it also felt like their truth. It also felt like what was right for them, and they really have lived to the fullest. They have, um, found their inner potential, and Einstein would say that most people will die without even using 5% or 10% of their brain capacities. And as a child, I would wonder, what would that be like to use all of your brain? Why should one waste their life and go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such a wasted life where you were given a potential and you were given Can everyone hear me? I'm sorry, something, we disconnected. Okay. Um, I see a raised hand. Is everything okay? Okay, great. Thank you. So we were talking about how we have to. What happened? Am I still there? Can you all still see me? Okay, awesome. Because it's telling me that I have left the meeting when I'm in the meeting. Just a second. Okay. Oh, my share has gone. Okay. Um, okay, I think I'll just leave it here and continue because I don't want this um, disconnecting again. and then the whole flow stops. So we're talking about following our intuition, and we're following the heart. And I'm giving you not very like religious or spiritual examples right now, because we are living in a world where I believe that there is no separation of God, education, spirituality, and intelligence. They're all one. Allah is everywhere, everything. Allah is the single ingredient of the universe. So then why make these divisions? So these people that we see, they followed their heart, they went to the maximum, they're changing the world. And even if, you know, we see them in so many spheres of their life, we see that they live fulfilling lives. Now if you look at Steve Jobs and all these people, you'll find out that they've spent portions of their life in meditation, they've gone to ashrams, they've done their spiritual work as well. And um, being part of this organization, Mind Valley, I see every day that people are striving to grow and do better in this world and spiritually, with the peace of mind, with the peace of heart, through spiritual means. They're using their thought, they're using their thought power. A lot of them will call it clairvoyance and, you know, intuition, all of these powers to do better in life. And I want to share a beautiful portion of this book, The Surrender Experiment, by Michael Singer. And very early in his life, he went into meditation, and he started practicing it very regularly. And he says that, you know, he had started having these spiritual experiences where he didn't feel like going back into the world and doing life the way we do. So he was done with his undergrad, and his teachers were, you know, telling him to go forward and do his further education. And he wasn't really keen, because he would get up every morning in his you know, farmhouse somewhere far away from the city, and he would want to meditate. Anyhow, with the persistence, he said the teacher got him enrolled in an exam for his master's degree or something. And he didn't want to study for it. He didn't want to, he felt like he's wasting his time on this dunya, right? He wanted to be in that spiritual frame of mind because it gave him peace. So anyway, but the day before his exam, he says that I said, you know what, I have to take the exam. I'm ready to fail it. I'm not going to study. I'm just taking it because my teacher's insisting. Because you see, in his book, he explains that he is doing this experiment with his life where he says, I surrender to life. I surrender to God. I surrender to the flow of life. So whatever comes my way, I'm going to say yes, right? So in that sense, when the teacher enrolls him, he says yes and he surrenders. Now, what he does is that he's sitting under the tree and he's got his book, and he says that I was just intuitively guided to open this book 3 times. Okay, so he opens the book first, he reads that page, second time, third time. He does that, and then he goes the next morning to take his exam, and he is in a shock because there are 3 questions on the paper, in the exam paper, and the exact 3 pages that opened up show up as questions in his exam. So he knows exactly what to write. And he takes this exam, and of course, he is brilliant, right? He does really well in his exam. So he's in a shock, and he's just thanking the universe, you know, in awe. He goes home, and then he gets a call from the principal. So when he gets the call from the principal, you know, in his heart, he's thinking that somehow the teacher found out that he's done some sort of cheating, because it felt so much like cheating, right? Like the exact questions that were going to come, he already knew those, and that's the only thing he'd studied. So it was so surreal for him, and it was so unreal for him that he felt like somehow the principal must have found out that I've cheated on my exam, and he's going to call me out on that. And this is what he's expressing in the book. And he goes And he meets the principal, and the principal is floored. He's like, "Oh my God, you did so well. And now what I want you to do is that I want you to somehow turn your book or your thesis into a document that you need to submit, or we want to use it for some study." So like he gets this grand honor just because of the how well his exam goes. And that's how the universal intelligence is available to us, the intuitive knowledge and intelligence available to us. So you bypass the grinding of this life, the cause and effect of this life, and you go directly into accessing this divine knowledge, where you can save time and access this place of higher power and higher intelligence, so that you progress faster. And that's why all these people that you see working so well, and doing growing so fast at such an early age, you'll always find that they have this spiritual practice in their life, where they are trying to enhance their intuitive voice and trust and faith and belief. And it's all there and available to all of us, because um, in truth, there is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in truth, it is only His divine knowledge that trickles out and becomes sort of diluted when it reaches this dunya, in this world of manifestation. In the Quran, Allah says that we send down everything in a measure, and it comes from a measured source. I'm not able to give you the exact ayat right now, but Allah is saying that I send everything in an exact measure. So what Allah is saying is that whatever we're seeing in this dunya is the diluted form of a higher realm. It's a diluted form of a world where we don't we can't access that world through this manifested place. But if we go inner into our inner world, if we do that work, it's always accessible to us. And the reason I am talking about this is because, again, continuing with our discussion into Ar Rahim, that He is the name that manifests to us when we open our hearts, right? Opening our hearts to this voice and trusting it, and with time practicing it. And Allama Tabatabai, in his book Kernel of the Kernel, actually mentions this. And he says that this kind of practice comes and takes its effect through trial and error. There will be some mistakes that we will make, but with time, we start to rely on this intuitive voice, and we can distinguish the noise. We can distinguish um, the unnecessary chatter from the real true voice of Allah in our heart eventually with this practice. And for that, sitting in zikr and silence really, really helps. That's why we see in the life of the Holy Prophet that he's going to Ar Hira, the cave, and he's sitting there and he is meditating. And then we see that the revelation comes to him, right? With Hazrat Jibreel coming to him with this revelation. And what I believe is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the perfect role model, and he has shown to us the perfection of human existence, and he perfected his human existence by making that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having access to that divine knowledge that he spread through the Quran. And that Quran is special because it has come through this vessel of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But all of us, even laymen, even normal people, hold that divinity within us. Not only does Allah say that you hold my divine particle within you, but that the whole universe resides within us. That means we have the prophetic element within us too that needs to be activated. And uh, one of my teachers, Dr. Nasir Zaidi, he does Urdu classes on the Risalatul Wilaya of Allama Tabatabai, and he very clearly explains there through Risalatul Wilaya that we, all of us, have that wali dimension within all of us that can be activated to access this divinity within all of us, so that we can expand our existence beyond our limited beliefs and our limited existence, and to go beyond this life of confusion and not knowing so much to a place of knowing, belief, faith. And again and again, we're seeing like people like Rumi, people Rumi was blasphemous because he would say that my Masnavi is like my Quran, because what he was trying to say is that he had accessed a divine insight, um, and he then wrote it down and shared it. And there, over the years, we see mystics again and again, like Ibn Arabi, Rumi, who have written their literature, and then that literature needs more and more people to come and translate it and expound on it and give us explanations of those works, because they're so profound. And one of the writers in present day that I work with, is Neil Donald Walsh, and he's written books called Conversations with God. And what he says is that he was going through his life crisis, and he didn't know why all these calamities and tragedies were happening to him. And one night he wakes up in the middle of the night, and he starts to write an angry letter to God, and he heard a voice of God. He says, I heard it on the right side of my shoulder, and I thought, okay, now already that my life is going bizarre, that now I have to lose my mind, right? Because his first reaction was that I'm losing my mind. So he says that I heard a voice on the right side of my shoulder, and I started to get answers, and he started writing it. And then he was told that what you're writing is going to become a book. And that became his point of validity, that okay, whatever information I'm getting, if it becomes a book, then I know for sure that it wasn't just me hallucinating these, not hallucinating, but like imagining this voice. And he sends out just these notes written on a yellow notepad to publishers, typed out through a friend. And he starts to get offers from publishers who are like competing to publish this work. And he knows that it was a divine intervention there, and he gets all these answers to his life questions, right? So um so what I'm saying is that this is not something beyond our reach. The whole, I'm I can see a whole community emerging in this day and age that is working through these powers and getting ahead in life and doing this work, not just for physical healing, but getting ahead in all spheres of their life. And we have it right under our nose. But there has been so much stigma around doing esoteric work in Islam that we have really fractured and disabled our souls by not relying and by not going deeper into these gems of knowledge. And that's why we need to open our minds and say, and not be afraid of asking the questions that we have about everything. Just really not holding ourselves back, because today when I sit with kids, okay, they are blunt and they are asking questions that are so open. And unless we don't address these questions, unless we don't answer these questions, we're not gonna have them on Islam for very long. Because now there's a level of spirituality that's emerging in the world that has to be embraced, and Islam has all of that. And so moving forward, we also see Hazrat Ibrahim, who asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him this level of yaqeen in his heart. And this level of yaqeen, which he says, if I see, then I'll believe, kind of thing. And I've seen, but I want ayn al yaqeen, right? So he did, Allah gives him the honor of doing that experiment with the birds, and then they become alive again. But just a few days back, I was with my daughter, and I was teaching her. And we were talking about Hazrat Ibrahim's childhood, where he goes and he sees the sun and he sees the moon and he sees this and he says, well, they all go away and they vanish and God cannot vanish. What I want to bring your attention here is, with real honesty, look at this man who is in the search of real truth, right? And imagine his father or his uncle or whoever who was the head of worshiping idols in the house. How intimidating it could be for a child to go and speak up against an adult who has all this authority, to the extent that now, when he questions it, when he's questioning it in with this intense questioning mind, where he's saying, well, this doesn't sit right with me, it's not making sense, and he goes and he chops off all these idols. um, a child knows the level of consequence they're going to get for the things they do. But Ibrahim is like, a brave daredevil who's going and he's saying, I'm going to question everything because my heart is saying this. My heart, you see, he's following his heart again. And something's not sitting right. His gut feeling is saying, this is not right. So he goes and he questions everything. And then he's breaking these idols. And he is, so witty that he, puts the axe in the hands of the largest idol, and he says, ask him. And they're finding it rude. What is Ibrahim doing? He's making fun of our gods. But at that point, what Ibrahim is doing is that he's breaking away from that cycle of generational, ancestral, passing down of mindless ideology. And if the father of Ibrahim, as mentioned in the Quran, was an open-minded man and saying, let me learn from this child, he would have found faith, right? And so would have so many uncles of our holy prophet. They would have found truth. So now Ibrahim is threatened with being burned in the largest fire you've ever known. And Ibrahim's faith doesn't waver because in his heart he knows the truth. And that burning fire within was able to cool down the fire outside. And we see that here again, the yaqeen that he comes to after questioning blatantly the sun and the moon and the idols. And he's having this conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this complete honesty, that I don't believe this. Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense. So he's giving himself this space to question everything and to break everything down so that it can build again. And that journey continues through this life of a prophet. And we're seeing that so much later on, after he has come to this place where Allah is saying, don't you believe? Allah is saying to Ibrahim, don't you believe? And Ibrahim is saying, I want Ainul Yaqeen. I want it with my own eyes, and Allah gives it to him. And Allah is not offended. Allah is not saying, oh, how dare you, or I've already given you enough, or, like whatever. And we hear about the Sohofe Ibrahim, right? The Psalms, the Sahifa that Ibrahim is receiving from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all of that is happening, but he's not letting go of that child within him that's constantly questioning, because something in his heart is alive. And we need to go back to that questioning child within us and not let it um, slip away with the vagaries of life, with the structuredness of the outer world, with the way the society has become. And to do that, we need to be really authentic and honest with the inner self, which is going to be completely unique and different from the person right next to you. No one is going to have that same experience. It's going to be so unique. And that's why Imam Bakr says that the journey of a moment of a believer will always be a lonely journey. You'll be alone in this journey because you have to constantly find your inner voice, which is going to be a unique voice. So, moving forward, what I also want to say, one more thing before I read from the book, is that because this journey is about questioning, we will be not the symbology of Ibrahim breaking the idols is a metaphorical a metaphorical imagery for us, which will work for all times to come, because human beings will always need to keep breaking idols within. Things will settle down. You will feel like, oh, I reached this place. Now I know what's going on. And then suddenly, if you're sincere in your journey, all of that has to break down again and again and again. And it's an infinite journey. So it's going to be a um, constant journey of breaking and making. So as a inner world, in your spiritual world, there will be a lot of breaking and making, and it's scary, and that's why a lot of people don't like to go there. But if we don't go there, life will take us there, right? um I like to repeat this again and again. Oprah said this, that life will keep sending you messages like little pebbles, and if you don't wake up, then a huge brick is going to come your way, and that brick comes in the form of different wake up calls, like some difficulty or a calamity or whatever. So what Oprah would say is that now I pay so much attention that I don't take myself to that point of getting hit by a brick. So wake up, and Allah is saying in the Quran, wherever you turn is the face of God. So constantly life is a face of God speaking to us, talking to us, giving us messages every day, through everywhere. There are no coincidences. And I think this came up in my conversation with a dear sister, that coincidence is, Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about it, and he says that coincidence actually means, in geometry, the point where two lines meet exactly to form an angle. Now you can imagine how thin a line is, right? If there's a millimeter difference in the line meeting each other, they're going to miss each other, right? The angle won't be formed. So for that point of meeting of the two lines where the angle is formed, it has to be meticulously calculated. And that is why coincidence, that point of meeting of the two lines, is called a coincidence. So a coincidence is not random. A coincidence is a very meticulously planned event in your life. And so God is constantly talking to us, giving us messages, and our gut knows it, and we have to catch it, because it's Allah speaking to us constantly. There is only Him. Okay, so I continued with the book that I'm reading, Rosina Fozia book on the divine names, Ar Rahim. So she writes, we human beings carry in us much pain and loneliness and a deep need to be free. Most of us react to unpleasant experiences by blocking our feelings. But our feelings are the connection between body and spirit. When we block them and they become stiff, we hamper the natural flow of energy, thus preventing ourselves from developing and maturing. Ar Rahim and Ar Rahman enable us to come closer to those painful areas, gently awakening hope and reminding our soul of its nature and destination. So I wanna say something here about intention. And over here it's saying that Rahman and Rahim enable us to come closer to those painful areas. And I have constantly mentioned to you that we become the means of this uh, opening to the wounded spaces within us. Because if we are going to give ourselves this space of gentle love, where we can be 100% completely ourselves with all of our weirdness, um, goofiness, our unexplainable uh, traits that we feel like, oh, why am I like this? If we can be okay with our mistakes and okay with our flaws and imperfections, then we can open that space of saying, okay, I'm scared, but I'm still going to go there and see what lies there, right, in my pain. And it says that with this love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can open it. Now, there's a practice that we can do moment to moment during the day, where we can imagine ourselves as two things. We can either two, three things like to bring to my imagination. Either think of yourself as an empty vessel, like a pipe, and imagine that the light of heaven, flows through it, and you're that vessel. And then let that light of Ar Rahman and Rahim flow through you and come into your life and say, Allah, I open myself for this receiving. Okay? And you just receive this light and let it enter you, and imagine this is the light of love. And you can imagine any person in your life you feel intense love for, and like you just love them so much that the love is automatic and you don't have to force it. And know that this formless feeling that you have is a divine um, presence in your life, and connect that love to that light, and then give that light to yourself in a moment of self criticism, feeling really bad, moments where you said something and you regret it, moments where you did something and immediately you realized, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do it? And then you beat yourself up. In those moments, maybe remember my voice and give yourself this space of love of God, and say, God, I'm human. I'm supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to fix it for me. That's your job, right? And do it with this love, and do it with this, in Urdu we say, do it with the man, do it with this this very surety in his love and support, and say, I messed up, God, but you know what? I'm coming back to you. I'm returning. You've asked me to return. I'm returning to you. Fix it for me. Make it go away. Take away the regret from my heart. Fix the situation. If I hurt someone, heal their heart. I'm praying, right? That's all I can do now. So this is all my power, but your power is infinite. Have that conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah knows we're going to make mistakes. But the most beautiful thing that Allah requires from us is not perfection, but this constant returning. And we all know, whoever's here, I want to assure you, you're not here because you have some ill intentions, or you deliberately go and hurt people, or you deliberately make mistakes, or if you let yourself loose, and if you indulge in this godly love, that you're going to somehow become so careless that you're going to go around hurting people. Imagine if you become the kind of person who doesn't hurt themselves through this self-criticism. That's what your cup is going to be. And if you have self-love, that's what you're going to give to other people. So it's not like, if you're going to give yourself this freedom to indulge in Allah's love, that you're going to be careless, and then you're going to be this bad person who's just going to be careless with other people. In fact, on the contrary, love, forgiveness, compassion, gentleness, mindfulness will become your second nature, because that's all that there will be within you, right? You'd have let go of that criticism. So one is that, imagine that vessel. Number two, imagine yourself as the moon, right? And Allah's light being the sun, and the moon has nothing of its own. You don't have any of this light of your own, but you can be that reflection of the light. And that's why, moon is so beautiful, because moon reminds us that it goes through phases. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's, in different shades and shapes. And so we are like that. We go up and down, so we're in phases. But sometimes we have our dark days and light days. But then, as a moon, none of that light is yours, but you're grateful for this opportunity to be a reflection, a reflection of God's beauty and light. And so, in moments of, self reflection, imagine yourself to be that beautiful moon that is nothing but Allah's light, and let that light go through you, you know, and give yourself that opportunity to feel the gratitude for this opportunity that Allah made us Khalifatullah on earth, because we reflect his light like the moon. And we have all of this compassion and Rahman and Rahim within us, and we need to activate it, and we need to practice it. And they say that if you are able to be a certain way in your private moments, then you're going to be that automatically in your public moments. So if we can really ground ourselves in these kind of, you know, self love, self compassion moments personally, believe me that this love is just going to be, you know, flowing through us automatically. So you realize that here, there is an expansion, right? The contractedness of self criticism, anger, um, self hate, self, you know, all of that is a constricting mode. And the minute we start to align ourselves with these intentions, so I'm taking you to this point where I want to take you. How does this expansion come? If you feel like you're this vessel, if you feel like you're the moon that is reflecting this beautiful light of the source, you're emulating it, right? You are becoming like your source. And while you can't be exactly like the source, you are trying. And when you're trying to be that, when you're trying to be that um, emulation, you are setting an intention to be like God, right? In setting the intention of being like God is saying, I want to be godly. And so we have now entered a state of mindfulness where we have a goal and we have an intention. And the beautiful effect, a direct effect of setting an intention is that it directly connects us to the source. Intention connects us to the source. Intention has the power to take us out of our constrictedness into an expanded state. If you guys give me a second, I wrote down something that I wanted to share with you all. If you can just give me a second. Yes, so aligning of intentions takes us beyond the limited self that we are. Okay. Aligning of intentions takes us out of our limited bodily existence and lets us enter an expanded state. And Dr. Wayne Dyer has written a whole book, The Power of Intention, and it's a really profound book. But intention has that power that if we get into the habit of setting an intention moment to moment, we constantly enter states of expandedness. It's a state of expansion. What and now just see the next step to that. What happens is that if if we're going out of a state of constriction and contraction into a state of expansion, then we're going from the body spectrum to the soul spectrum of our existence. And what intention does is that it helps us go back to that being within us, which is beyond the human. And if we realize that if we can have an independent intention of being godly, then we find the expansion and the willingness and the space within us to serve others, which is beyond any expectation in return. So, even as a mother at home, if I am cooking food and I'm waiting for my husband to appreciate my food, then that becomes my intention. Cooking good food for my husband's appreciation. Husband's appreciation becomes my goal and intention for that activity. Now make a shift. Change your intention. I am cooking good food because I'm serving, because serving is what God does. God gives. God doesn't take. So I want to be like God. I'm going to give. The minute we set that intention of being godly in that moment through that act, we have freed ourselves and liberated ourselves uh, from that reaction that controls us from another human being, which is beyond my control. I cannot control that my husband will like what I'm giving him. I cannot control whether he will praise me or not. I cannot control whether he's in the right mood to have the right taste buds to give me the reaction that I have in my mind. It's all beyond my control. So I leave myself at the mercy of something completely out of my control, and then it hurts me, and then the next thing that happens to me is that I'm unable to serve. Next time I won't be able to do it because I'm hurt. And I'll be like, what's the point? I cook, but he never appreciates, right? And that happens in so many spheres of our life. But when we enter this state of godly emulation and setting of the intention purely to be godly, it liberates us from all the other human beings and makes a direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the source. And it gives us that stamina and it gives us that expanded existence where we can now serve unlimited like the source. We can keep giving and not expect in return, because expectation was never my goal. And the minute I serve food, the minute I have cooked the food and I have served, I've already achieved my goal. I've already reached my destination of service. I've already become godly. Now, whatever everybody else does cannot take me away from my goal and my destination. So I hope that I was able to explain this, and it made sense that how the names of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and grounding ourselves in it and emulating them and setting them as our intention can create an immediate shift in the way we do life, and it connects us to our higher selves. I'm going to read on now. Divine mercy is in all things and for all things, with every new fold of trust that we discover in the invisible divine mantle laid on us with our first breath. We come to know more the divine mercy manifested through all creatures. In this way, the presence of every creature and every encounter becomes an enrichment, because every existence carries a part of the divine mercy. We are confronted with different situations throughout life, and each one offers us the chance to deepen our self knowledge. You do know that, they say that knowledge doesn't exist on the outside. Knowledge comes into existence through the inner assimilation of what has been taken in, right? Because even a baby can see things. A baby can see a math formula, but it won't be of any good to that kid, right? But there's a certain level of internal assimilation that creates knowledge within. So knowledge is actually something, according to my teachers, that doesn't exist outside. It only exists within. Okay. um, and it is the inner work that will now use the outer world to create a difference within us. One more thing that a teacher said, I'm forgetting which one it was, which teacher it was who said, who said to me, he was giving us a lecture, and he said that um, the usually, we can have that inner work that can become the means of the outer work that we do, right? Like, which is what we're talking about, going inner and expanding ourselves and all of that. And then sometimes when the inner is out of balance, the outer landscape can help to balance the inner landscape, and that's why we go into nature and we go to areas which are not man-made. We go to uh, areas of beauty, natural beauty, that have not been, tempered by human hand. They have that godly hand in them, right? So we go to mountains and trees, and we go to these beautiful landscapes, because the outer landscapes sometimes can help to balance the inner landscapes. So this is what the author is saying here, that when we sometimes, let ourselves experience the outer beauty of the outer nature and environment, then that can help to really ground us within, take us to that place of the inner landscape of divine beauty. Human beings who have tasted this name carry in their hearts softness, refinement, and a whole symphony of tenderness. Innate compassion is distinctly stressed in Ar Rahim. If you repeat the divine names Ar Rahman and Ar Rahim every day 100 times after a prayer or a meditation, the resulting intimacy will further your tolerance and capacity to help, while freeing your heart of the blindness of judgment. Although they are not identical, those two divine names are not different because they both dwell in the ocean of love. They are the key to all that is good and the lock to all that is bad. Every action initiated with those two names carries the divine blessing. So always start by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And again, I mentioned to you all that Allah chooses Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim to be said before everything. None of his Jalali names or names of Qahar are used uh, as a reminder to us to begin any action. And I also mentioned earlier, I'll repeat myself, when we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, we can make an imagination of entering into a bubble of love. And we can also imagine that now this action that I'm doing is, drenched in this bubble of love and light of ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And so we do life, can we go into moments and situations not with any perception of negativity, but going into it with a positive state of mind. I have noticed that even when our kids, they're fighting with each other, or as adults, when we go into situations where we have to deal with difficult people, um, if we enter the situation with the real Bismillah Rahman Rahim, where we can really have that moment of pause and say, I'm grounding myself in Allah's love and mercy, and I am going to be an emulation of love and mercy, and going with that tenderness of good opinion of that beauty and love can enable us to not doubt other person's intention at times, to not take the situation in the negative lens that we've been taking it. Dr. Wayne Dyer would always, really stress that when you do the next moment of your life, do not rely on your past at all. You're beginning a completely new moment in your life. So when you're doing your life like that, when you're starting your moment with a complete new slate, Bismillah Rahman Rahim can become that reminder that when I'm going to approach this situation or this person whom I've dealt with all my life, and they have been a certain way, I'm going to go with the new, renewed perspective of goodness. The Holy Prophet said, if you assume something bad about someone, give them 70 reasons of goodness, right? Allah is constantly telling us to have husn dhan, have a good opinion. Allah is also saying in the Quran, whatever comes from me is good, whatever comes from you is bad. If a bad opinion is coming to your mind, it's coming from you. If a good opinion is coming to your mind about something, then that's godly. That's God's way. And I'm really mentioning Dr. Wayne Dyer today so much, maybe because I'm missing him so much, I don't know. But he says something really beautiful again. He says, the difference between good and God is just one O. And so he says everything good is God. And he also mentions the Quran when he explains this. So if a good opinion is coming to our minds, it's godly. If a bad opinion is coming, then it's my egoic opinion. Because in Allah's world, everything is good. He's saying that, right? All good comes from me, evil comes from you. So this is where we've come. So this is what I was saying, that we start and initiate everything with Bismillah Rahman Rahim, and we understand that this is the God we worship. Somebody messaged me during the week with a question that I'm struggling with the idea of God's fear, and I was given an ayat to look into, which I haven't been able to, which I will, inshallah, and I will reply as soon as I can. But this is the practice that can wash away all of the conditioning that we grew up with about God. You see, the problem is that we are in a journey to find proximity with God, but it's human nature that we don't go near people who instill us with fear. A child will never go to a teacher in school who's scary. We always go near people who will be compassionate and loving. So for us, it's really, really important that we keep practicing this. We keep practicing this reminder to ourselves about Allah Ta'ala being merciful and kind. And that is why we see everywhere, oh, don't start anything without Bismillah. Now, the way we were brought up, we did Bismillah with, again, ironically, fear. We were told that if you eat your food um, without Bismillah, then the shaitan is going to eat your food or something like that, right? And people have actually come up with hilarious videos where they'll show people eating food, and then when they say Bismillah, the shaitan is vomiting the food out and ridiculous things like that. So again, now what we're doing is that we're saying this very holy verse, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which is Rahman and Rahim and mercy and beyond judgment and all of that. We're being reminded Allah is beyond judgment. He doesn't judge you. He loves you unconditionally. His love doesn't end where your mistakes begin, and all those things. And yet, the only reason we have been taught to do these practices was out of fear. If you don't say Bismillah, then da da da, this is going to be the consequence. This is going to be the consequence. And again, we do these things out of fear, like sit and drink your water, otherwise you'll fall sick. Uh, do this because of that. So I understand there that all of that is there, but how about saying it again in a positive light? Drink your water sitting because it's good for you. You'll find barakah in it, you'll find blessing in it, you'll find health in it. Let's take it to that realm of positive mercy instead of seeing it again and again as a strict teacher standing with the stick and saying do this or else, right? So that's, if we can do this again and again and return to his mercy moment to moment, it becomes a repetitive practice. And repetition is key in the evolution and transformation of the soul, right? And that is what dhikr is, and that is what returning is. That is what inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un is, this constant moment to moment returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to close the session now with a dua, and then I will open the floor for any questions and I'll stop the recording. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O Allah, we put up our hands to you, the kind, the merciful, the ever loving, the compassionate. There is not enough water in the oceans that can have the ink to praise you, Ya Allah. You say it in the Quran that if all the trees were pens and all the oceans ink, we still would not be able to write your praises. We can never do justice to your praise and your beauty, Ya Allah. But we hope to get a glimpse of this beauty that can touch our hearts, that can be that elixir that can transform us. We are the seekers, Ya Allah, but we are powerless. We are nothing without your will. It is in your will, Ya Allah. So put it in your will to transform us and change us. Ya Allah, it is our yearning, it is our seeking that we come here looking for you, searching for you, Ya Allah, and you say whoever seeks will find. So we come here in this hope, despite our brokenness, despite our flaws, despite our inconsistencies, Ya Allah. We put all of our hope in your love and your mercy, Ya Allah. So guide us and hold our hand and take us to where we need to go, even if we lose our way and we become distracted. Ya Allah, bring our attention back to you. That is all we seek, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we know that you surround us and your presence is with us, but somehow we lose it. Open our hearts, Ya Fatah, open it. Open our hearts and visions to you, Ya Allah, so we only see you everywhere and everything. Ya Allah, we ask you for healing of this world that is in this pandemic and with the second wave and so many deaths and so much disease, Ya Allah. We are your weak humans. We get scared and we get paranoid and we lose faith again and again. Ya Allah, bring us back to the beauty of faith. Bring us back to the beauty of hope and light. Help us to see the beauty in all of this, Ya Allah. Help us to see the beauty in all of this, Ya Allah. Allah, make us a means of help and healing for all the others around us and for ourselves. Ya Allah, we seek you and only you. So bring us to our destination soon, Ya Allah. and hasten the reappearance of Al Mahdi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.